Honorable, thank you for taking this interview, sir.
Pleasure is mine.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes.
We felt a little bit worried when we read a report from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics that the Nigerian poverty index is in the region of about 103 million Nigerians under the poverty line. I thought that was quite a serious one. And when they were even saying that a place like Sokoto State had the highest, with 95% people living under the poverty line, and then you have Ondo State with 27% as something that will be described as the best. We couldn't quite place ourselves, so we thought that maybe we need to have a better understanding of this. How acceptable is this statistics that we just received, sir?
Well, it's really not a question of its acceptability. Rather, it's a mirror of the reality that our people contend with. I would even say that the measurement, because what is generally accepted by way of definition is that people who live on less than $1 a day. Okay, if you want to follow the exchange rate now, we are talking about people who live on less than, we say 800 naira a day are considered to be living under the poverty line. Now, out of that 800 naira a day is transport, to and from school for the children, maybe to and from the market for the mother, and then of course the boss in the house, he has to move from one place to the other, either through public transport, or if he has a motorcycle, he has to buy fuel for the motorcycle. Now all these persons we talked about, have their own tanks, their stomach that must also be fed in that particular day. And yes, many of them pay their rent once a month, so a slice of that rent has to be set aside. God forbid there are challenges with health, medication. What is the cost of buying maybe antibiotics now for food poisoning or dysentery, or malaria medication, maybe for one or more members of the family. So you see that it's quite hellish. But the point I'm trying to make is that even that standard doesn't quite capture it all. We are living in a country where there is no unemployment benefit. So even for those who are unemployed, where do you expect them to get even that 800 naira every day to say that if they live below that line? So we are talking about debt poor, debt poverty, grinding poverty for about 63% of our population. So now one has to wonder. I have not had the benefit of seeing the full report by the Bureau of Statistics. empirically, I suspect that the figures are even much more than what they say in terms of the poverty level our people are confronted with on an ongoing basis.
Why do you say that? Are you saying that Bureau of Statistics could have moderated that report by reason of the realities we are seeing around us?
I'm even saying that it may not be backed up by empirical evidence. I have never stumbled into any officers who say they are from Bureau of Statistics in my neighborhood or in any neighborhood for that matter. You know, I have not heard of persons in the market, for instance, taking sample of prices to determine the poverty rate or the price level for different common products. So by and large, my suspicion is that they just rely on figures from other better endowed agencies as far as the collection of data is concerned. But we live within our people, and we get confronted on an ongoing basis. People are facing serious health challenges. As you mentioned, there is no facilities provided by any of the governments to take care of the unemployed, to take care of the aged, to take care of the widows, to take care of orphans. So the bulk of the sustenance of many of our people who are unfortunate to be confronted with this grinding level of poverty falls on relations. Uncle, do you want me to die? The doctor has said I should come up with this money, and my husband's life is slipping away. Uncle, please, I haven't eaten since yesterday or day before. So when we get confronted with this on an ongoing basis, and don't forget, there's also an extent to which we can go. So the number of SOS, Save Our Souls, calls and cries that we meet. You wake up first in the morning, there's somebody at your gate. You are driving between the home and the office, there are people who are even not just standing by your car window, they are knocking.
They are not frivolous.
They touch their mouth and they touch their stomach and necessities, that kind of thing. You get to the office, they are waiting. On an ongoing basis, from both those you know and those you don't know. So that's why our people say if one person has the misfortune of being well-to-do within a family, he is also still in poverty himself.
Because everybody around.
Of course, of course, you can't close your eyes. You can't shut your gate. You can't say just go away. So whatever little you have, you also have to share. It's against this background that you have to ask the primary purpose of government. We have enough work to be done in our country to engage all hands. We have enough roads to be tarred. We have enough schools to be built. We have enough hospitals to be built. And what is our experience? The contract business, the contract system has made the construction industry minute. And by and large, just an avenue for filling private pockets.
Okay, I think that is one area where we are a little bit disturbed. We are hearing of one person carrying as much as 80 billion naira. Yeah. We are hearing of people taking as much as 300 billion naira. million, just like that.
And then
is it not possible that these statistics can be mitigated if we can check corruption in reality, if we can actually take steps to check corruption?
The challenge is that of the victims of a system that perpetuates this kind of corruption. Because from what we are finding now, we are being told that, there's going to be a redesign of the currency, and after a while, the one in circulation right now will no longer be acceptable tender. And now those who have hoarded humongous amounts of raw cash, because they are afraid that if the funds are taken as bank deposits, with the various laws that we have in place mandating banks to make reports to law enforcement agencies where there are sudden huge sums of money deposited, people feel more comfortable leaving these sums in soak-away pits and water tanks. The point we are making is that this money is not even being put to use and put into circulation to enhance productivity. So don't forget that in the 1929 depression in the US, just to get people engaged, the president at that time devolved a policy whereby people would dig holes and then fill them back with the sand, just for people to be engaged and be paid for doing something. We don't have to do that. In this country, at least we have grown up to meet road makers. Today we can enhance the implements for road construction such that more of our people can be engaged in providing services. And don't forget that whatever they are paid is also plowed back into the system and enhances money in circulation and ultimately productivity. A situation where government just feels totally irresponsible, not bothered about unemployment levels. So where do you expect people to even have that 700 or 800 naira per day? Multiply that by 30 days in a month. At least 10-50% of as many as 10, 12, 15 states of Nigeria right now are still not abiding by the Minimum Wage Act that says people, the least any Nigerian worker should be paid is 30,000 naira a month. What is the worth of 30,000 naira a month? Is 30,000 naira a month? How does that measure up to 900 naira a day?
Honorable, I don't know, but from your analysis so far, I'm beginning to see a trend of ignorance, both on the part of those who are holding this money, who are busy looting the money and the rest of them, and the government itself. There seems to be quite a huge pronunciation of ignorance here. I mean, people not understanding that at the end of the day, people will just need to be fair. People need to be taken care of and all that. Are we having...
I wouldn't say it's ignorance. What is happening is not out of ignorance. It's a conscious decision to use governmental processes and the process of management of public affairs, to fill the pockets of a class made up of a tiny minority.
Why would they do that, sir?
Oh, it's greed. The capitalist system is founded on exploitation and greed.
Okay, but there is a bounce back, because at the end of the day, the hungry man is going to fight.
So
I mean,
what is happening in I don't want to limit it to the northern part of the country right now, can be located in the deprivations that the bulk of our people up there see as the hallmark of governance. So they set up their own government. But unfortunately, they prey on fellow victims.
The poor.
The poor. So it's like a candle being lit at both ends. As of yesterday, we were told that in some local governments in Zamfara, about 46 women and a few men who were unlucky to have escaped, because it is known now that when men are kidnapped and abducted, many of them don't come back. So when the bandits are coming, once the men get a whiff of it, they run away. And in a village of how many people? 46 women are kidnapped. And I think they were asking for 20 million ransom. Where's that money going to come from? So if those people consider themselves victims of the system, who deserve a better life, somehow they manage to lay hands on weapons, it is mind-boggling that they will prey on their fellow victims. People have to pay taxes now before they can go to their farm. How do we relate all of this to the primary purpose of governance and government? What justification would the government have for expecting such citizens to pay taxes? Now there are national revenues derivable even from this tax, natural resources and all of that. Of course, we have been told how pipelines have been constructed into the sea. So a natural resource that belongs to all of us.
The Commonwealth.
And the state simply looks the other way for private pockets to be filled. Now, the point we are trying to make is that it is not out of the abundance of the goodwill of this tiny minority that the poor will get succor. So in the final analysis, the ball is in the court of the victims. It is the victim that determines the length of oppression, not the oppressor.
Okay, this is why I'm still looking at that area of ignorance, in the sense that, okay, for instance, Zamfara State used to have people who have money, in that state. Now none of them is there. They've all run out.
In Abuja and Saudi Arabia. And,
so okay, see, this is what I'm saying. Why would they continue a system where people are so deprived that they are not aware that there will be a bounce back, because poverty will fight back?
Certainly.
Why are they not thinking?
It's a natural phenomenon. Nature abhors a vacuum. So there's a way in which even that measurement yardstick of those living on less than $1 a day doesn't quite capture the mess in its profundity. How do you factor the homeless into that? Those who live on the streets. If you say that's an extreme situation, or perhaps the number of persons who live in the open and on the streets may not be as many as those who live in overcrowded housing. Papa, mama, and whatever the number of children, they're living in one room, poorly ventilated. Sometimes they even have to light their mosquito coils even when the windows are locked at night for security purposes. What quality of water is accessible to such a family? So the living on less than $1 a day doesn't capture all of that. How do you relate that living condition to the right to dignity and the right to privacy? of husband and wife, where people have to queue up to be able to have their bath in the common bathroom and toilet facilities in the face me and face you house.
Honorable, I don't know if this question I am afraid I will have to ask it. What should Nigerians do in view of what we are seeing now? I know there are other areas we are probably going to be looking at. For instance, somebody was saying that the Bureau of Statistics may not, when they said Sokoto, for instance, was the worst with 95% of index poverty. I mean poverty index level. They were saying that the reason they are saying that is because some of the southern states, they didn't quite take the population properly and marry it with the economic status of the people, the individual, their income per capita and stuff like that. Probably it will have not been so different from what we are seeing in the north. I don't know whether you want to agree with that.
I cannot but observe that the bulk of our people sleeping on the streets, out of school children that we see in a place like Benin, they tend to be, of course there will be exceptions, they tend to be people from the northern part of the country. Children who, first thing in the morning, they have a bottle of water in which they have put some soap and some kind of brush with which they clean the windscreen. Even though before you left home your car had been washed. It's just an attempt on their part to be seen to be rendering a service for which they expect
a little energy.
I don't know whether you have seen any of our children from this part of the country doing that. So that suggests that that opportunity even exists here. So you can only imagine what they left behind to be able to come to a place like this, find it more livable. So I am saying, sir, that the measurement standard has to be looked at, so that we don't get carried away by this, spending less than $1, a day. That is what makes you poor. It doesn't capture, homelessness. Doesn't capture poor meals, irregular meals, access to health care. The satisfaction, the right to dignity, the satisfaction from knowing that you are able to produce. So, graduate unemployment.
Okay, I know that we are talking of the North facing this stark poverty because essentially of the terrorist activities there. Now, a few days ago,
poverty gave birth to banditry.
Okay, it's a vicious
and insecurity. Yes.
Now we are having.
It's just unfortunate that rather than facing the source of the poverty, the fact that the few is taking more of his share than what is entitled to, which has tended to impoverish the majority. Rather than addressing that, they are making the victims even twice victimized.
Yes.
And it's not only the North, it's a nationwide phenomenon.
Yes, sir. Because a few days ago, the Baji people, I personally know them, they are great farmers. And they have been under threat of Fulani invasion. Sorry, I say Fulani now. Sorry to use that word. But that's the report. The report says Fulani herdsmen invasion they've been killing and killing and killing. The Bajis are not crying out. Now they can't go to farm. The Bajis, yes.
From where?
Kogi State.
From Kogi State.
Kogi State. Some of them are in Kogi State. Some of them are in
Benue.
Part of them are in Benue.
Yes.
Okay. So now they can't go to farm. Their farming activities are being threatened.
What other skills do they possess? How else do they earn a living?
Exactly. So now we are having the same thing be replicated in virtually all the northern states. Benue State is supposed to be the food basket of Nigeria before. Yes. Plateau State, Nasarawa resident. So are we not heading towards
a precipice? It's not that about that.
That's what I'm afraid to say. But I think we are really heading somewhere.
Yes.
That make what we are seeing today.
A vacuum. It has been said over and over. Even those words were made very popular by the late great Chief Obafemi Awolowo. The children of the poor that you refuse to cater for today are coming in just a question of time to make hell out of our space for the children of the rich.
Okay. India was faced with virtually this kind of situation. Today, India is sort of doing something to change the narrative. Is there nothing we can do in Nigeria to change it too?
Of course, we are blessed. In fact, one of the parameters, access to plumbing, as far as toilet facilities are concerned. There was a time they were measuring countries where people defecate on the streets. It's still happening in Nigeria. Go to even Lagos.
It's in Benin.
In Benin. How many petrol stations will permit somebody walking from the streets into the toilets in that petrol station? How many supermarkets will allow that? How many restaurants will have that? So we are faced with a situation where people are pressed on the streets. They must do the do, and they have no places to go to. Is that not an incidence of the loss of the right to dignity? That you are compared to defecate on the streets. Just forget about urinating. The other day I was climbing down from an aircraft and I saw somebody that just came down and was urinating on the wheels of the plane. I mean that is just a joke. But we are talking about, if you look at our history, it didn't used to be this way. In a place like Benin, where we had an ordered system of governance, by and large, there was no hunger of the sort we are facing now. Certainly there was no unemployment. There was no homelessness. There were no idle people. Whoever fell sick had the right to be attended to by those who had the skills to cater to their well-being. So this dysfunctional system of governance that we are saddled with now is the product of our contact with the colonial officers, of our predators, who claim to be bringing us civilization, but who in fact took us back many years from the standard that we had attained. So that's why our people say, if we are looking for the way out, we are looking for a new way, the place to start is the old system and the old ways.
Can we really go back to that one?
Yes, we can go back.
If you recall, it was the days of slavery and traditional rulers.
Slavery was not the beginning of our history.
Okay.
The trade in slave was an incident of our contact with the Europeans.
No, it started with the Arabians. I mean, where people were selling people to the Arabians.
That was just a few years before the Europeans came.
Before the Europeans
so
came.
they both stand condemned.
Okay.
But before that contact, did you not have a system? Yes, it's a long time, but that's just a few hundred years. In Benin, for over 2,500 years, we had a system of governance.
Yeah, there was certainly a civilized system in place in Benin Kingdom, for instance. That's why they were able to go on external espionage. I mean, war
expansion of the kingdom.
Yes. Okay, sir, let's just turn this one down now. Since there's no way we can go back to the old thing, but is there anything we can do maybe to tweak the presidential system of government, which seems to open so much door for corruption?
The victims just have to fight for. We, the victims, have to fight for our rights. Yes, that's the only way out. What did fella say? Huh? You don't want that. You got Papa did for house, Mama did for house. You get one child, you want build house. You always get reason to fear.